neighbor. So these are the 4 categories of being a neighbor. And so since we're on this topic, the Shaykh raised the point of, Islam, non-Muslims, and behavior. I want to just mention a few quotations just to highlight the beauty of Islam and the justice of Islam, in the sense that al-adl, justice, is the principle of all relations between Muslims and non-Muslims. And this is the same whether non-Muslims are citizens of a Muslim state, as would be the case with Ahlul Dhimma, or whether it is Muslims who are citizens in a non-Muslim state. Right? The principle is al-adl. It is that of justice. And to highlight the justice of Islam, I want to quote here, maybe you've come across this before, by the Muslim jurist, Ahmed bin Idris al-Misri, who stated, speaking about the dhimma, right? So when non-Muslims want to live in a Muslim state, they pay a nominal fee, which is to exempt them from military duty, and which earns them guaranteed protection, right? This is the dhimma. And in fact, the word dhimma, because you have many non-Muslim Islam haters who hate Islam, they try to make fun of this word, dhimmi. Do you want to be a dhimmi under Islamic rule? Right? Because they make it look like as if it's, like they portray the most horrible interpretation of this. But the word dhimma, what does the word dhimma mean? It means, if you go back in the dictionaries, we see it means covenant, contract, bond, protection, shelter, alliance, responsibility, clientship, care, custody, covenant, protection, inviolability, security of life. These are the meanings of the word dhimma. Right? And what does it mean? It means that you pay a nominal fee to be exempted from military duty, and your rights, your protection, to practice your religion, to be safe, it is guaranteed by the Muslim state. Right? And to give you an illustration of what we find in the speech of the jurists of Islam in relation to how these people are to be treated, this is a quote from, he said, the covenant of the guarantee of safety, the dhimma, obligates certain rights from us, Muslims, which are due to them, the non-Muslims, because they are in our neighborhood and under our protection. They are under the dhimma of Allah the Most High, of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of Islam. Right? So in other words, these people are under the dhimma. This is the dhimma of Allah and His Messenger and of Islam. Whoever transgressed against them, even if it is with an evil word or backbiting them with respect to the honor of one of them, or any harm among the types of harm, or who even aided in that, then he has ruined the guarantee of safety of Allah, of His Messenger, and of the religion of Islam that had been granted to them. Meaning, this person now has ruined the dhimma, that guarantee which is given to them by Allah, His Messenger, and Islam. And then he goes on to explain, what does it mean to be kind to those who do not fight you for your religion and do not expel you from your homes? Right? He's talking about the verse in La yanhaakumullah, to the end of the ayah, عَنِ الَّذِينَ لَمْ يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ, who do not fight you and do not expel you from your homes, and tabarruhum, that you behave, that you're righteous towards them and that you are just towards them. He's speaking about that verse. And he says, this verse, what does it mean? The righteousness, to show gentleness to their weak, to satisfy the needs of their poor, to feed their hungry, to clothe their naked, to use gentle, kind speech to them, from the angle of compassion and mercy towards them, not out of fear or inferiority. Look at the very precise description here, right? We do these things out of compassion and mercy for them, not because somehow, we feel ourselves inferior and lower than them or out of fear of them, right? No, it is from the angle of compassion and mercy. To bear whatever harm arises from them when they are our neighbors, despite having the ability to end their harm. This is patience. Doing this out of compassion for them, not out of fear or veneration of them. To supplicate for guidance for them, that they be made people of happiness, to advise them in all their affairs that pertain to their religion, and likewise their worldly affairs, to protect them in their absence when anyone embarks upon harming them, to protect their wealth, their families, their honor, and all of their rights and beneficial interests, that they are supported in repelling any oppression against them and delivering all their rights to them. A Muslim does all such acts of goodness towards them that one who is in a privileged position can possibly do towards the one who is underprivileged. And likewise, all acts of goodness that even an enemy could possibly do towards an enemy. For all of that is from nobility in character and manners. It is desirable that all of what we do with respect to them is from this angle, not from the angle of pride and loftiness on our behalf, and nor from the angle of belittling ourselves and exalting them through such actions towards them. Look at the complete balance in everything in terms of what's behind the actions that we are doing. It's not because of inferiority or fear of these people, nor is it because of pride and arrogance, but rather it is out of compassion and, mercy and genuine, wanting to genuinely do good to these people. Now imagine this was the understanding of the average Englishman or the Frenchman or the German person or the European or the American, that this is what they knew and experienced of Islam. Right? Because people did experience this, like the Sheikh said at the beginning, in the early times, that this is how people entered into Islam in their droves. It wasn't by conquest and, forced conversion by the sword. No, this didn't take place. Islam, yes, there were military conquests, because this is the nature of empire. It's the nature of civilization. You are an ignorant fool if you think that somehow Islam and the Muslims can be criticized for, expanding and waging war, because this is just a fundamental fact of empire and civilization. This has always been happening throughout the whole of history, throughout the whole of human history. One empire comes, takes over another empire, another civilization comes. This is how it happens. And they last 100 years, 200 years, they crumble, another empire comes. This is just how it is. But yes, there were military conquests, but overwhelmingly the people entered into Islam in their droves when they traded with the Muslims, when they interacted with Muslims, when they recognized the reality of what Islam calls to. Many of them, even in the Crusades, when they fought against the Muslims and many Christians, they saw that, their fellow Christians acted treacherously towards them, right? And deserted them in battle and allowed them to be slaughtered by the Muslims. And when the Muslims saw them, these poor people, they've been robbed by their fellow Christians, they've been abandoned, they felt so sorry for them that they basically, gave their possessions, they gave them food, they whatever. And that's why the Sheikh said here that an enemy could possibly do towards an enemy, even in the time of battle and domination, right? So people saw all of this in the past. And that's what from that experience, they entered into Islam in droves, as the Sheikh said. And today, what do we see? We see the dregs of society from Muslim nations who are all but westernized, right? Tribulations have come to those lands. They flee those lands and they come to the lands of the non-Muslims, right? They're all like westernized, dressed like Westerners, listening to music, rap, whatever. Right? And they are given safe passage. They enter under a covenant, a guarantee. They're given food, vouchers, housing, whatever. And then they start committing crimes. They start raping, they start abusing, they start stealing, they start whatever. What else is a non-Muslim supposed to think when this is what he sees? Right? This is what these people, this is what they see of Islam. And so for that reason, it is upon, like the Shaykh said, it is upon all of us to convey these teachings of Islam, these beautiful aspects of Islam, practically speaking, by way of leaflets, by way of books, by way of, lectures, by way of, taking the time to distribute these leaflets to the neighbors. All of this helps, inshallah, to, correct people's perceptions, so that whomever Allah has written guidance, then he will be guided by that, inshallah ta'ala. As we're still on this, I want to mention another thing as well, keeping on the same issue of the neighbor, showing the justice of Islam once again, under the title, The Jewish Neighbor. The Jewish Neighbor. In the, it's in Al-Adab al-Mufrad of Al-Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. And it's from Mujahid rahimahullah ta'ala, who said that I was with Abdullah bin Amr, one of the companions of the Messenger of Allah, whilst his servant was preparing a sheep for a meal. And he said, "O servant, when you have finished cooking the meal, then begin by offering to our Jewish neighbor first." Right, so this is a companion of Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so remember, this is after the time of the Messenger of Allah, after all the things that happened with the Yahud of Khaybar and whatever else that happened, and they were dealt with justice according to justice and according to their own law. But after that, those who remained from the people of the book, under covenant, under dhimma, this is how they were treated. Right? So he said, begin by offering to our Jewish neighbor first. So a man said, the Yahudi, may Allah rectify you. So he said, I heard the Prophet, Abdullah bin Amr said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ advising with kindness to the neighbor with such emphasis, until we feared he would relate to us through revelation that the neighbor is to inherit from his fellow neighbor. Meaning irrespective of Islam. Right? That the neighbor, irrespective of Islam or not, his right would be so emphasized that revelation would come down that he would have the right of inheritance. So this is what Abdullah bin Amr is saying, that the Messenger used to emphasize it so much that we felt as if revelation is now going to come down, that the neighbor inherits from the neighbor irrespective of the religion. So, okay, so that's one thing. Al-Ash'ath bin Qais, who's a man from the Muslims, he had a dispute with another man from the Yahud. And this was dispute about some land in Yemen. And he didn't present any clear evidence, right? This is a companion. So the Messenger of Allah, this hadith is in the Bukhari and Muslim, he judged in the affair, and he judged in favor of the Jew, because the Jew had the right, had the haqq, against the companion, right? There's no favoritism here, right? Unlike what you see when you go to the books of the Yahud, and especially the Talmud, you see that there's tribal, racial preference. Right? Well, that's a whole topic in itself. Likewise, he permitted the Jews to judge in accordance with their own law in disputes between them. And he did not impose upon them in their own disputes unless they came to him and sought his judgment in a dispute. Right? So this now again is the excellence of Islam, in that Islam, they speak about discrimination and, whatever else. But really, if you look at the beauty of Islam, Islam is that if you are Jews or Christians, then you are free to practice according to your own law amongst yourselves. Do whatever you want amongst your own selves. And we won't impose or encroach upon that unless you come to us for justice. So here, Islam allows these people to maintain their culture, their worship, their whatever. Right? This is the justice of Islam. Whereas, in the so-called fake They demand from you, like you see in France. They detest your religion and they want you to abandon your religion. They hate it with a vengeance that they can't even allow a woman to wear a scarf on her head. This is the hatred and the enmity these people have, yet they claim to be people of justice and fairness and mercy. It's not. They are the most enmitous, hate-filled people. All the hate is coming from them. The hate speech, the hate laws, right? These are laws that are based upon hatred of other people and their religion and their tradition and their culture and their values. And they overturn the tables, and using this deceptive speech, which they are masters of, they make it look as if it's the other way around. Right? So this is the superiority of Islam over this fake democracy, hypocrisy, that they celebrate. Likewise, the Prophet ﷺ behaved with justice, benevolence, good manners, fulfilled the trusts. From his good behavior with the Jews is that he would visit their sick, as related by Anas bin Malik. There a boy among the Jews who would serve the Prophet ﷺ in his chores. He once fell sick. So the messenger went to him and he invited him to Islam. And the boy's father ordered his son to obey the Prophet. Right? So the father ordered him to obey the Prophet and accept Islam. So the son accepted Islam. Likewise, the Messenger of Allah would accept gifts from the Jews. He had trade dealings with the Jews. Aisha radiallahu anha relates that the Messenger of Allah, he purchased some food from a Jew on credit. And he mortgaged his shield for that food, for that the item of food. The Jews would often pass by him, ask him questions about religious matters. Once they asked him about the soul. And the verse came down about the ruh. And he would also supplicate for them for guidance and rectification. And also, at the same time, along with all this just behavior, he would also mete out justice to anyone who acted treacherously or with treason, or who violated the covenants, disturbed the peace, or worked mischief and corruption upon the earth. Be it a Jew or other than a Jew. Right? So though among the Jews who were treacherous and they allied with the polytheists and the hypocrites, right? And they were given justice in accordance with the Torah, And, so any transgression, the Messenger of Allah, once a man came and, whilst he was a non-Muslim, or on his way to the Messenger of Allah, he raided some people and he stole their wealth. And then when he came to the Messenger of Allah, he wanted to become a Muslim, and he wanted to offer the stolen goods, the goods he'd taken by way of robbery and whatever. So the Messenger said, as for your Islam, we accept it, and as for your this, then we have no need of it. Right? So all of this you can see is from the perfect justice of the Messenger of Allah. And as we said, what defines our relationship with non-Muslims, be it in this situation where they are Ahlul Dhimmah, or whether we are in their lands living under covenant, the other way around, whether it is in peace, whether it is in war, what defines our relationships is justice. And for that reason, that's why you see, even in war, for example, we are prohibited, as outlined by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that we are not to kill the women, we are not to kill the children, we are not to uproot trees, we are not to destroy buildings, we are not to kill the priests and the ascetic worshippers, nor are we to kill the people who are just getting on with their, tilling the fields and doing this and whatever, and they're not involved in the fighting. All of this is from the justice of Islam, in that we only fight those who fight. Right? We fight only those who are actual combatants. And the Messenger of Islam, once he came across a woman who had been killed, and he said, this woman was not to be killed. This woman was not to be killed. And so, in war, as you've seen now, in relation to neighbors, in relation to family, in every respect, you can see that there is complete justice in the Sharia, in Islam, in everything. And this is very different to what we see of the oppression of those amongst the Jews who call themselves Zionists. And these are, these people started off as really like a secular movement. And what they had in their mind in the 19th century was that they didn't really like the plot, the way the Jews were living across Europe in ghettos, the religious ghetto Jew. They didn't like that idea. And so they wanted to have like a nation like other nations. And this is the idea of Zionism. It started off as like a secular ideology, like a secular political movement, right? So then, when the money power came in, it was funded by wealthy banking people at the beginning of the 20th century. And in general, this is what they don't tell you, but all across Europe for centuries, they had this, hatred and dislike of Jews. They didn't like Jews. And the politicians of Europe were thinking of ways. It wasn't just Hitler, so don't think it was just Hitler. It was others as well. They were thinking, how can we get these Jews and give them their own place? Because we don't really want them here, right? This includes politicians. Don't think it's just Hitler, right? They were trying to solve this issue of the Yahud. And so, obviously they gave the land to, the Balfour Declaration, and they gave that as a state. And since that time, the rich and wealthy Yahud, they did two things. The first thing that they did is that they paid a man called Schofield to write a new type of Bible, a new Bible. And within this Bible, the translation and the things would be changed in such a way that the only way you can be a good Christian is to support the Zionist project and to support Israel, right? This is called the Schofield Bible. And they used that Bible to create a movement which today we know as the Christian Zionists. The Christian Zionists, right? Who ally with the Zionists. Really, we consider these as like a domesticated donkey that does the work for the Zionists, right? So this is one thing. And the second thing is that they began to indoctrinate the average Jew with this political philosophy that being Jewish is a nationality. It's a nationality, right? Being a Jew, they wanted to turn it into a political identity rather than a religion. Do you understand? Right? So it's a bit like this. Imagine like Hizb ut-Tahrir, for example, right? The Khilafah people. And they say, you know what? The Muslim identity should be centered around the Khilafah, should be a political thing, not a religious thing. Right? So then they start nurturing Muslims upon like this political idea of being a Muslim and moving them away from, Islam as a creed, Islam as, so you are politicizing the religion and moving them away, from religion, right? So this is what the Zionists, what they did. So they wanted to turn the ghetto Jew into a nationalistic, patriotic, militarized Jew. And that's what they've done very, very successfully. Right? And so they've made people from all across the world come, go to the state there, military training, whatever, because they are serving a particular purpose. For this reason, many other Jews reject them and reject the Zionist project, right? Because they believe that the only way we can enter that land is when the Messiah comes. When our Messiah comes, then we will be led into that land. Before that, we have to live amongst the nations because we are in exile. And it is a heresy, and some say it is apostasy, to even attempt to establish a state for the Jews. So they reject and deny that these Zionists speak for all Jews. They don't speak for all Jews, right? It's like I said, imagine Hizb ut-Tahrir now coming along and saying, we speak for all Muslims. Well, no, you don't. You don't speak for all Muslims. And we don't buy your politicized Khilafah ideology, which is, mixed with it is the manhaj of the Khawarij and the Mu'tazila and allegiance with the Rafida. And so you don't speak on our behalf. Right? But what the Zionists have done is that they've successfully, in a century, managed to portray themselves as if they are the voice of all of the Jews. But they are not. Right? And you've seen many, many Jews all across in New York, in London, in other places, denouncing what the Zionists are doing, of the butchery and the savagery and the genocide and the ethnic cleansing, upon the ideology of revenge against the Amalekites, right? They have this notion that the enemies are the Amalekites, right? And that's why this Netanyahu, this criminal, he actually used this mention of the Amalekites recently. Right? This is how they view this vengeance and this bloodlust that they have, right? So coming back to the point, what was I saying? I was saying that you've seen that our foundation is justice, right? It's the principle of justice. What is just? What is justice? We are not allowed to kill women, children, civilian men, uproot trees, destroy, buildings and things like that. We're not allowed to do that because this is injustice. And because we are only fighting because people fight against us in order to hinder the peaceful invitation, the call to Islam. And they want to hinder it. They don't want people to hear it. Right? Because they don't want people to be taken from servitude to men to servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? To be saved from the clutches of profiteers and exploiters. The one who sell them alcohol, the one who get them addicted to gambling, the ones who get them addicted to fornication, the ones who, Islam's trying to save these people. So when we try to invite, then they physically and violently and with aggression hinder the call to Islam. So then we, in order to protect the instrument of da'wah, this is why jihad was legislated. So then we fight the one who fights against us, who's engaged in actual fighting. And it is to make Allah's word supreme. Not because of land, not because of any other reason, right? So all of this is justice. Whereas what you see, with these criminal, bloodthirsty, genocidal Zionists, right? And this language that I'm using, that's not my language. It's not me saying that. That's Jews who are saying that. I'm quoting Jews for you. Right? It's not me, so you can't come and say this is anti-Semitism. That argument is demolished, and everybody has seen through that argument. No one falls for these lies anymore. Even one of the heads of one of the United Nations, this top guy who is in the human rights, just 2 days ago, he resigned his post and he wrote an article, 2-page article, in which he is saying that this is a Zionist, genocidal, ethno-supremacist, ethnic cleansing which is taking place in Palestine. And he, out of revulsion, he resigned from his post and he wrote this letter mentioning and stating this in no uncertain terms, right? Then you have Jews all across the world saying exactly the same thing. There's even another Jewish guy. He called it a textbook case of genocide, right? So what we want to understand here that when you read what we've been reading through from the speech of the Shaykh, and you read this ayah in the Quran, and about the neighbors, and about the rights of the neighbor, and I read you everything about the Yahud, and how the Prophet dealt with the Jews, with kindness, with, dua for them, visiting their sick, doing trade with them, judging in their affairs and giving them the ruling if they deserve. Absolute perfect justice. Right? This is the justice of Islam. And compare this with, what we see these days. First of all, what the Zionists are doing in Palestine. And then the domestic donkeys known as the Christian Zionists, which is like a contradiction in terms because, the foundation, Zionists are among the Jews. And Jews reject Isa alayhi salam. Right? And amongst the extreme ones amongst them, they say things like Isa alayhi salam was an impostor, a magician, the son of an illegitimate union. He is now boiling, na'udhu billahi min dhalik, but they claim he's boiling in the hellfire. La'natullahi alayhim. That he is in the hellfire, in boiling excrement, they say. Alayhim la'a'inullah. Right? That's what they say. Right? That's what they say. And to you guys, Isa alayhi salam is the Lord of the worlds. He's the Lord of the worlds. Right? Who died for your sins on the cross. And without him there is no salvation. How on earth have you become the domestic donkeys for these guys over here? How does that even make sense? This is like an absolute contradiction and a sign of utter humiliation, no morals, no principles, no value for the truth. How can you be like that? To the extent that even churches are being destroyed, their fellow Christians are being bombed and killed. Right? And so really what it comes down to is that these people, they have sold their religion for a paltry price. It's all about money. It's all about wealth. It's all about selling weapons. It's all about profiting from war. Right? And these affairs, justice will be served on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And so that's why, we make dua to all of the oppressed. That Allah Azza wa Jal, He removes this oppression and justice will be done. This is what gives us certainty. Right? That justice will be done. And, there's only a certain point beyond which that oppression can continue until Allah Azza wa Jal will mete out His justice. So, coming back to where we were, we said